My name is Garrison Allred. This is my ID. I'm going to turn this camera around to show you my audience. Once again, they are sitting more than 6 feet apart. They are abiding to the rules in the syllabus concerning COVID-19. If you'll give me 1 second. All right. Now I will start my speech. In defense of General Jackson. General Jackson is a controversial figure in our culture today. In July of this year, the capital of Mississippi had a 5-1 vote to remove the former president's statue from the grounds of City Hall, written by Megan Flynn on the Washington Post. She also says that statues of Jackson have been the target of protests across the country, in Jacksonville, Florida, New Orleans, and most notably, Washington. Anyone who has been reading any type of news is probably familiar with the idea of cancel culture. Today, I will talk about some aspects of Andrew Jackson, a former president and a former general, that you don't see in the news. Now, I am not arguing that Jackson was not a racist, a killer, or even a civilized man. But in his defense, he was not just a man of his time. He also represented the white man of his time. Now, history deserves to be remembered. We as a people need to learn our history to understand where we come from, to understand the struggles of our ancestors, but most importantly, to become better and more understanding than that. And we should do all this without erasing or ignoring the past. Now, in this presentation, I've obtained much of my information from government websites, and I've also read a book written by John McKim, titled The American Lion, Andrew Jackson in the White House, also the winner of the Pulitzer Prize. I've also been reading, and have read, actually, a history textbook I've used from a different class for APSU called The American Journey, History of the United States. I will be talking about Andrew Jackson today. Mainly, I will talk about some of the aspects about the man that you do not hear on mainstream media. First and foremost, numerous people call our former general and president a racist. People say he's a racist. Well, I say there is no debate that he hated Indians, but he did have his reasons. Jackson was born on the New Frontier, or within the New Frontier, in 1767. Jackson was born in a violent place during a violent time. He had a profound hatred for Indians because Indians would often attack white settlers and kill white settlers, including his family, that encroached on their land. Furthermore, Indian tribes were encouraged by foreign powers to attack Americans. So not only did he hate Indians, he also hated the British because they were also enemies of the United States. So was he really just a racist, or did he despise the enemy? On top of that, despite his reputation for hating Indians, General Jackson adopted an Indian child during his military career. If he was such a racist, why would he bring home an Indian child to his house? Not to be raised as a servant nor a slave, but as a son. Is that something a stone-cold racist would do? Now, I understand I have only talked about Indians so far. But what about the obvious? The fact that the man owned slaves. Well, so far, I have used the word racist to talk about General Jackson, and until now, I have not mentioned anything about slavery. I will say, and be very clear on this, that there is no way to argue the fact that the president owned slaves. I mean, come on, it's common knowledge. Now, one should be careful in today's cancel culture to erase the influence of one man in our history simply because he was a slave owner. So my question is, where and whom should it stop? Where and whom should we stop? General Jackson owned more than 140 slaves when his plantation was at his peak. Now, according to MountVernon.org, President Washington, the first president, father of our nation, owned over 300 slaves. Are we ready and are we willing to take down his name? Are we ready? Are we willing to bring down his monuments across America? Are we wanting to remove his face from the dollar bill just because he owned slaves? Another significant man in American history. You should know him. His name is Thomas Jefferson, our third president. He wrote the term, "All men are created equal." If you've been in any American history class from high school to college, you should know that term. It's written in our Constitution. This was the same man who owned 175 slaves, written on an FAQ page on Monticello.org. At the time when he wrote this, he did not specify color because he did not need to, because everyone at the time knew what he meant. Are we ready to erase him from American history? Understand that the sins of Jackson were the sins of the nation. Should we hold everyone who voted yes to slavery equally accountable throughout history? Slavery was an institution before Jackson's life and even 2 decades after the man's death. Now fast forward to current events. There is a new issue happening in the States right now concerning Jackson. There is talk about taking him off of the $20 bill. I like to call it the $20 dispute. Should they do this? I think not. I don't think they should. And I have my reasons to why I think this. Well, President Jackson was in office. He accomplished 2 things during his White House tenure that other presidents at the time and before that time did not. Jackson wanted and voted to kill the National Bank. Not only that, he was the first and only president up until that time to completely pay off national debt. So if there was any president that deserves to be on the bill, or if there is any president or any person that should be taken off, it should not be him. He should stay on, because he was a president that used money wisely to pay off debt, not just for his country, but for him and for his people. President Jackson is a controversial person in today's society. People have good reason to dislike him. My stance is that we should condemn not only the sins of Andrew Jackson, but condemn the sins of all white men in our history. Moreover, we should be wise enough to separate the positive and negative influences, the positive and negative parts of our history. But most importantly, we should learn from both. Thank you.